What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to dive into some more Reddit stories to help you fall asleep or to chill to, study, or whatever. I have some really interesting stories today, so let's just get right into it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure to hit the like button. It really helps the channel a lot. And thank you so much for stopping by. It means so much to me. And all right, enough yapping. Let's just get right into it. I live in the most perfect place in the world, and that's why I'm scared to death. I'm writing this from my bathroom floor with the lights off. I've turned my phone brightness all the way down. If you're reading this, please don't ignore it. I'm not crazy. I wish I were crazy. Being schizophrenic would be a relief right now, because if I were insane, the world would still make sense. I moved to Silver Creek 6 months ago. I needed peace. You know that small town silence that feels like a hug? Well, Silver Creek is exactly like that. Everything here is impeccable. The sidewalks don't have a single crack. The trees look like they were pruned with invisible rulers. At first, I thought I'd hit the jackpot, but the peace didn't last long. The first sign wasn't alarming. It was just weird. I was heading out to work around 7:30 a.m. My neighbor, Mr. Miller, was in his garden. He's a guy in his 50s, always wearing a vest and a smile. He was using a manual lawn edger. The problem? His grass was already perfect. He was running the tool over the asphalt of the sidewalk. I paused for a second, watching and listening to that sound of metal scraping against stone. Scritch, scritch, scritch. "Good morning, Mr. Miller," I called out, trying to be friendly. He stopped, but he didn't turn around the way a person does. His body stayed facing away, but his neck, he tilted it so far back I thought it would snap. When he finally rotated his torso, his smile was stretched. I can't explain it. It looked like he was making a massive effort to keep the corners of his mouth pinned up. "Ethan, good morning!" His voice was far too cheerful. "The grass is growing fast, don't you think?" "Mr. Miller, you're running the edger over the concrete," I said, laughing awkwardly. His smile didn't flicker. He took a step toward me, but his arms didn't move. They stayed dead at his sides, swinging like they were made of rubber. "The edges must be kept clean, Ethan. If the edge isn't clean, the rest leaks out. You don't want anything leaking out, do you?" I didn't know what to say. I felt a cold pit in my stomach. That wasn't a conversation. It was like he was reading a script that didn't match the situation. I just got in my car and left. In the rearview mirror, I saw him go back to scraping the metal against the asphalt. Scritch, scritch, scritch. The glitch at the office. At the architecture firm, things got worse. Daniel, my supervisor, is the kind of guy who never loses his cool. But last Wednesday, I walked into his office without knocking. He was sitting at his desk. The lights were off. He wasn't reading anything. He wasn't on his computer. He was just still. But not thinking still. He was static. I stood in the doorway, shocked. He wasn't blinking. His chest wasn't rising. I swear on everything holy, there wasn't a single sound of breathing in that room. I took a step back and the door creaked. In that same millisecond, Daniel turned to me. He blinked 3 times fast and leaned toward his computer as if he'd been working for hours. "Ethan, good of you to come. The East Wing project needs adjustments," he said, looking down at the reports on his desk. "Daniel, are you okay? You seemed strange." He stopped typing. Slowly, he raised his head. His eyes were what scared me most. You know when you look at a dead fish on a market counter? That lifeless, lusterless thing? Those were his eyes. "Sometimes we just need to rest, Ethan. There's no need to stay alert when no one is using the room." My blood turned to ice. When no one is using the room? What does that even mean? I left that office feeling like my legs were going to give out. The rule no one tells you. The only person who seemed real here was Sarah from accounting. She used to smoke, hidden behind the building, and her hands always shook. One day I went up to her and asked, "Sarah, what is happening to this place?" She looked at me with a terror I've never seen in anyone. She dropped her cigarette and grabbed me by the collar. "Shut up," she whispered, and I could feel the sweat on her hands. "They feel it when you notice. They don't like being observed. If you see something wrong, you smile. If you see someone standing in the dark, you pretend you didn't notice. Understand? You only survive in Silver Creek if you pretend to be as empty as they are. Who are they, Sarah? The things that live in the houses. The things wearing our neighbors' clothes. Just act normal. If you break character, they correct you. The next day, Sarah's desk was empty. Her computer was gone. When I asked about her, Daniel simply said, "Sarah? We've never had anyone by that name. You must be confusing us with another branch, Ethan. Drink some water, you look pale." They didn't just take her. They erased her footprint from the company, as if she had never existed. They are in the corners. The worst part started 3 days ago. I began noticing things in my house moving. Small things. A picture frame tilted to the side. A closet door I know I closed but now stands ajar. But what broke me happened last night. I was watching TV in the living room. It was pitch black except for the light from the screen. You know that feeling when someone is watching you? I looked toward the corner of the room, near the bookshelf. There was a figure there. It was Mr. Miller, my neighbor. He was standing in the corner, half his body hidden in shadow. He was wearing the same vest and that same smile. He wasn't doing anything, just watching me. In the dark of my own living room, a scream caught in my throat, but Sarah's words came back to me. Pretend you didn't notice. Don't break character. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the remote. My heart was thumping so loud I thought he'd hear it. I forced a yawn. "Man, I'm tired," I said to the empty room, my voice cracking. "Think I'll head to bed." I stood up. I had to pass within 2 feet of him to get to my room. I didn't look. I kept my eyes fixed on the bedroom door, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw his head track my every move. Without moving his body, just the neck rotating like a mechanical axis. I went into my room, closed the door slowly, and didn't lock it. If I locked it, I'd be admitting I knew he was there. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling for 3 hours. I listened to the silence of the house, and every now and then, I heard the sound of something being dragged down the hallway. Very, very slowly. The despair. Now I'm in the bathroom now. I left my room 10 minutes ago because I heard the front door handle turn, and then Daniel's voice came from my hallway. "Ethan? You forgot to hand in the report yesterday. I came to collect it." You know what's scariest? It's 3 in the morning. No one collects reports at 3 a.m. And he didn't knock. He just walked in. I can hear his footsteps now. They're heavy, as if he doesn't know how to distribute the weight on his feet. He's walking through my bedroom. "Ethan, I know you're awake. I can hear your heart. It's making a lot of noise." "Why is it making so much noise? That seems abnormal." I'm holding back tears. I want to scream. I want to jump out the window and run until my feet bleed. But I know if I leave this house, the other things out there will see me. The whole complex belongs to them. The whole town belongs to them. He's at the bathroom door now. I can see the shadow of his feet under the door. He's not knocking. He's just standing there. "Ethan," he said, and now his voice doesn't sound like Daniel's anymore. It's a hollow voice, like the sound is coming from inside a metal pipe. "Open the door. Let's fix that noise in your chest. You'll feel much better once you stop feeling afraid. It's just an adjustment. In 5 minutes, you'll be like us. Perfect." I know I don't have much time. If you find this post, please don't come to Silver Creek. If you see a place that's too perfect, run. If you see a neighbor with a static, unreal smile, run. They're forcing the door. I can hear the wood splintering. I'm going to put my phone in my pocket. I'm going to stand up, open the door, and I'm going to smile. I'll tell him I had a nightmare. I'm going to pretend until the very last second. Because the rule is clear. You only survive if you pretend you don't know. But I think this time, I knew too much. I'm a private investigator, and I specialize in missing persons. I was hired to go to the New Mexico wilderness to find one of 6 people that have gone missing there, and I came back empty. That sounds so interesting, man. Let's get into it. This one isn't like my other cases. Usually I'm hunting down runaway teens or silver alert grandparents. It's pretty rare, actually, that I get involved with a criminal case, but here, I felt I had no choice. When I got the call from an elderly grieving father saying his daughter had gone hiking in the wilderness and never returned, I was on the cusp of telling him to call search and rescue and turning him down, until he mentioned the 5 others that had gone missing. Then, he had my attention. As I stared out of my office window on a hill overlooking the city of Albuquerque, he spilled his woes over the phone for me. 2 weeks prior, according to him, his daughter approached him almost in a frenzy, I guess. Manic might be a better word. She told him she'd heard of this magical place out in the Slaypa Wilderness, an arid badland wilderness in the northwest of New Mexico, that hosted wonderful formations of hoodoo stones, including something called the Alien Throne. As he spoke, I searched the location up. About 2.5 hours or so away, there it was, all documented in stunning photography. Beautiful badlands, otherworldly stone formations, and yep, the Alien Throne. A tall, oddly symmetrical, 3-pronged, flat-headed hoodoo that could capture the sun at just the right angle. And while I could see it all in 4K, I couldn't find much about any missing people in the area. So I asked him how he knew others had gone missing, and he said that that's what his daughter told him before she left. He said he tried to stop her from going, but there was a fire in her eye that he'd never seen before. Despite this, she was an avid hiker and possessed quality survivalist skills, so he let her go in the end. And so now he was here, having not heard from her in almost 2 weeks. My first natural question was, "Why didn't you call the cops?" To which he responded, "I did. They said they'd look into it, but haven't followed up at all. I'm here out of desperation, not instinct." I felt for the man. More than that, I felt intrigued. I can handle myself, you see. I'm trained in jiu-jitsu and carry a handy .357 revolver almost everywhere I go, and it saved me more than once. I told him I'd look into it. He asked my price. I said it was on the house. The next day, I loaded up my hiking bag, hiking pole, gas cans, and a map of the area into my SUV and departed for the long northward trip. Most of it is roughshod road, potholes and cracks, but nothing too serious. But the last, say, 10 miles or so are all dirt on the Navajo reservation. There's a point where the road just ends, and you're on washboard sand and rocky slants the rest of the way. At one point, I thought I'd tip over, right at the end, but luckily and by grace, I made it to the parking lot of the Badlands. First thing I noticed was a sign. No trails, no shade, no water. Truly, anyone hiking this would be on their own. On the sanded bluff overlooking the Badlands Valley, I pulled out my binoculars and scanned the area. I could see the first set of hoodoos and a field of washes and desert that led to the main wilderness attraction, where the Alien Throne was supposed to be. And that's all I saw. No evidence of people, no proof of life. The entire area was still, silent, and voided. I packed the binoculars away and headed down the slope to the valley. I must say, the hike, though hot and unmarked, is one of the most beautiful I've ever done. Sandstone and limestone sandwiched atop each other in spires rose like a sea of ancient, burnt cathedrals around me. Petrified wood littered the landscape, and the sun on the stone made it almost glow. In some ways, it felt like being on an alien planet. The hike to the Alien Throne took maybe an hour or so, hour and a half. Way out in the Slaypa, there is a forest of hoodoos and formations, and when I made it there, I finally began to see hints of life. There at my feet, on the edge of the formations, was an abandoned hiking pack. I unzipped it and rummaged through the contents. Water, a compass, some energy bars, and, interestingly, a small digital camera. No phone, no wallet. I pulled out the camera and found it to be dead. Luckily, I brought a cord and a power pack and plugged it in, stuffed it in my backpack to charge, and moved on. Wandering through the formations brought me other interesting finds. A hiking stick leaning against a mushroom-looking rock. A shoe seemingly stuck in the sand, which must have been there for some time. No footprints to or from it either. The closer I got to the Alien Throne, the more items began to appear. A credit card with the name John Polanski. A dusted leather wallet, empty save for John's ID. Must have been another who went missing. A half-empty metal water bottle encased with national park stickers. The water was still cool. A ball cap from the Rocky Mountains, tattered and sun-worn. I couldn't make heads or tails of it, and by now the clear blue sky had begun to fade to a bruised purple as the sun began to sink. I knew I didn't have much time, so I hurried on my way to the alien throne itself. And swiftly I found it, majestic and truly inhuman. It stood like a monument to the strange, a monolith of, this shouldn't be here, if that were ever a human emotion. I actually started feeling that way about the entire place by this point. Something here was deeply, deeply weird. A breeze rolled through right around then, created the first true noise I'd heard in a while, besides my own heartbeat and breath. But it wasn't a susurrus, nor a whistle. It was more like a groan. A pained groan, like the land itself ached. Searching around, I found another wallet, and this time a phone. I picked them up, opened them in the welcome, if unsettling wind. They belonged to his daughter, Audrey. The picture on the phone seemed to be her and her father, and the ID in the wallet confirmed. So she was here, and something did happen. I made some mental notes of this, but found I really didn't have all that much to go on. No signs of struggle, no scrawled notes. There were just items in the silence. I did take them, packed them away to give to her father, on the likelihood that I couldn't find her, as I was starting to believe. Something was very wrong here. I started taking pictures with my phone, though its battery by this point was heavily drained. Examining the pictures revealed nothing out of the ordinary, just the stone and the objects. I got maybe 15 photos before I decided to pack it away to save the battery. Had I had any cell service, I'd have called the police right then to demand they come out and investigate, but I didn't have any service, nor did I have time. The sun hit the horizon on its descent in perfect alignment with the alien throne. Its light went through the hoodoo's holes and cracks, casting a fiery golden glow on me. The moment I was hit with the light, the groaning wind silenced, became still, as though the whole world had frozen up. Unsettled as I was, I decided now would be the perfect time to make my escape from this haunting landscape. I spun on my heel to backtrack as the light gilded the area through the throne. But as I got to the edge of the hoodoo formations, I stilled, as did my heart. This wasn't right. It all looked somewhat familiar, but it just wasn't. It was too still, too empty, too much of an emotional void. It took me a minute to understand what I was seeing. What had been desert grasslands sprawling out from this point were now nothing but hoodoos, as far as the eye could see. Eclectic, otherworldly, alien stone formations that seemed almost Euclidean in construction. And they went on forever, out to all horizons, sinking lower and lower from the alien throne, out as though I stood atop a never-ending downward hill. I swallowed nervously. It was all I could do to keep my calm, like I knew to do. I tried to rationalize it, but just couldn't. It couldn't have been real. Shouldn't have been real. But here it was, before me. Staying calm grew increasingly difficult. I wasn't in New Mexico anymore, quite clearly. Staring out at the sea of stone, I felt something begin to stir inside of me. This calling, an urge to explore the hoodoos before me. I could feel that there was something deeper to them, something greater out in that forest of rock. If only I had the courage to seek it out amongst the twisting spires of sandstone and pale granite. It was more than a calling, more than a want. It was a need, one that had gone unfulfilled for centuries, it felt like. And that scared the shit out of me. As a PI, I know better than to let curiosity get the better of me. I've seen good people end up in bad situations before, merely on the basis of being curious bastards. Wasn't me, wouldn't be me. And yet, I felt hungry to walk into that stone. Perhaps foolishly, perhaps incredibly intelligently, I called out to the expanse, "Hello," and waited, and waited, and waited. And eventually I heard something back. My own voice, my own hello. But it came from behind me, an echo from the wrong direction. And that cemented it for me. If anyone was out there, they weren't going to hear me. By now, the sun had sunk down below the forever horizon. and when I looked up, an alien sky greeted me. There were two, hear me, two intersecting galaxies overhead, their bright, unfettered arms stretching across the yawning sky. Where they met, a great, almost eyeball-looking light shone down from those heavens. I felt like it was staring at me, waiting, watching. I shivered, not from the cold, but from the malice in the air. I'm not sure how to describe it otherwise. I could almost feel the malintent, the starvation of the land. It felt like teeth under my skin. My phone had died by now, but I knew I needed to capture what I was seeing. So I reached into my bag and pulled out the camera I'd found, fully charged from my now drained battery pack. I flipped it on, pressed it to my eye, and began taking pictures. 1, 2, then 3, and then it too died. Something here was eating the charge. I placed it back in my pack and retreated to the alien throne. I'm not sure why, but it was the only place where I felt a modicum of hope. Logically speaking, it had gotten me here. Maybe it was my way out, too. I set my things against it and did my best to think about my predicament. I could only assume the others had caved to the hunger, the thirst around them. And admittedly, I felt close to caving too. It began to hurt me, harm me even. I felt a deep, melancholic suffering in the pits of my soul, only to be relieved, and this I just knew, by wandering into those ghostly formations. I resolved to not leave the alien throne no matter what. I would have preferred to break my own ankle before I descended into the maze below. My teeth began to grind, my jaw clenched up. It was as though the sparkling sky above could read my intentions, was coaxing me out. I swear it was watching me. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every so often, I'd hear the only sound I'd ever heard in that cursed land, a pained, distant groan, longing for release. The ghosts, I started to call them, it felt like they were calling for me, like they knew I was there. And as badly as my virtues called upon me to seek them out, to find them, I remained by the alien throne. The temperature never changed that night. The longer the darkness grew, the less certain I was that anything ever changed here. I even became less sure that I'd see the sun again. The night was impossibly long, and with no way to tell time, I simply had to sit, wait, listen to the agony, watch the watcher. It took quite some time, but just as I was on the cusp of fainting into an inky, sleepless sleep, a hint of color tested the horizon again. Orange, burnt and flaming, lipped what might have been the eastern expanses of the hoodoos. I leapt to my feet, grabbed my pack, and ran around to the western side of the alien throne. For all my thinking that night, my one best guess to escape was this. And, seemingly reading me, the groans of the land grew louder, more haunting, more afraid. The anger in the air grew more desperate and biting, sinking into my soul like fangs. But still I stood my ground, more certain that I was correct, and waited for the filtered morning light to hit me through the throne. In what felt like an hour, the light hit my face, bathed me in relief. I blinked. I felt, heard the land around me screaming, crying out, yelling like a storm. But when I reopened my eyes, I was back, in New Mexico. The sea of hoodoos was gone, the hate in the air vanished. The groans were silenced, and the wind had returned. And as swiftly as I could, I gathered my bearing and ran. I ran almost the entire way back to my car, where I promptly vomited a spew of bile. It was here that I realized the tension I'd been carrying. As I finally sat in my car, I felt my body go limp, and I passed into a long, dreamless sleep. Suffice to say, I got back to my office that night, shaken and rattled unlike I'd ever been. I wept like I was in mourning when I saw the city lights. Despite having made it out, I feel like I lost something there. Some innocence, or a piece of my soul, I'm unsure. I'm here at my desk now, looking through the photographs on the camera. Most are of the Badlands, selfies of Audrey, and older family pictures. But then there are the ones I took. They're different. They don't show the forest of hoodoos, nor the angry eye in the sky. They're just black, empty. like I'd taken pictures of a void. And yet when I stare at them, I can still feel echoes of that malice, that starving hatred. I don't know what to think. I don't know how to feel. I have no idea what I'm going to tell Audrey's father. I'm starting to think I know almost nothing at all, honestly. All I know is that I'm hungry, and I've eaten, had water, and physically that hunger ceased. But that's not the type of hunger I'm talking about. This, I feel somewhere inside. Like what once made me complete is now empty, starving for what it once had. It is voracious and angry, and it terrifies me. I feel that, even if I made it out, I didn't make it out whole. I don't think I'll ever be whole again. I'm emptier now, like those forsaken lands, a maw that nothing will fill, sitting between what is and what is not. I left that place, but I didn't at the same time. And it didn't leave me either. I went outside earlier and stood in the wind to have a smoke. In the wind, I swear, I could still hear something. Something distant and ghastly and venomous and pained. It's the groaning. I can still hear the groans. I found the perfect apartment in the city. Something in it is stealing my life. Everyone's always looking for that perfect place. Big enough, not too expensive, close to work. Somehow, I actually found it. The building itself was old, the kind with narrow hallways and a slow elevator that always made a faint noise on the way up. But it was well kept, clean and quiet, in a way that's hard to find in a city like this. The landlady lived in the same building, 3 floors above me. She was a tall, older woman with a soft voice and tight shoulders, and seemed genuinely pleased to show me the apartment. It had 2 bedrooms, a big living room, and 1 balcony. It was also just a few blocks from the office, which meant I could walk to work every morning instead of dealing with packed trains. I walked through each room, expecting there to be a catch. I had just graduated and still had student loans to deal with, so there was no way I should be able to afford something like that. But when she told me the rent, I just stood there for a second. She explained she gives a big discount to young women who are new to the city, because she had been one herself once, and I didn't question it. I signed the lease that same day. Moving in felt good. My dad helped me bring my stuff over and fix a few small things, and for the first time, it felt like I was actually starting my life. The only strange thing that first night was when I dropped a toolbox on my foot and cut the side of my big toe pretty badly. I cleaned it, put a bandage on it, and figured I'd take a better look the next day. But when I woke up, the cut was already gone, like it had happened a long time ago. The first month felt perfect. I used to sit on the balcony every morning, eating scrambled eggs and drinking coffee before walking to work. I was in my early 20s, living in the biggest city I'd ever been in, with a job I actually liked, and it felt like everything had finally worked out. The apartment was a big part of that. The first time something felt off was after a night out drinking with coworkers. I got home, opened Instagram, and saw a picture of myself from earlier that night. And I looked different. Nothing obvious, just older. My face looked a little more tired, my skin dull, with faint dark circles under my eyes. I even pulled up older photos to compare. Same angle, same smile, but it didn't look like the same person. I didn't think much of it at first, but over the next week it got harder to ignore. My skin got drier, I started waking up exhausted no matter how much I slept, and one morning at work I couldn't stop yawning during a meeting. Later that day, during a presentation, I felt this weird pain in my back. At first, I thought it was just stress. My first real job, new city, new routine. It made sense. I went to a doctor just to be safe, and he confirmed it was probably fatigue. So I kept going. Day after day, I started getting used to feeling like that. I went out less, stopped going to the gym, and most nights I just stayed in watching random shows. Every month, I'd slide the rent under the landlady's door, like we agreed. I almost never saw her after the first week, and she never reached out. About 2 months after moving in, I found my first gray hair. It was a Sunday morning, and I was brushing my hair while listening to some podcast when I saw it. It honestly freaked me out. After that, things got worse fast. My coworkers started noticing. My face looked thinner, my skin dry and lifeless, and I must have lost over 20 pounds without even trying. The gray hairs kept multiplying. My boss even called me into his office and asked if everything was okay, if I needed some time off. I didn't even know what to tell him. Every doctor I had seen kept saying the same thing: stress, burnout, something like that. But the truth was, I wasn't even working that hard. Then Thanksgiving came up, and I decided to visit my parents back home because I couldn't wait to get out of that city. I kept thinking maybe I just needed that break. And for one day, I believed that was it. The first night back in my old room, my skin already looked better, I had energy again, and I felt like myself. But my parents didn't see it that way. They looked at me like they were seeing a different person, like they didn't recognize me anymore. And the worst part came when I stood next to my mom in the bathroom mirror. We looked the same age. That's when I knew it wasn't just stress. I ended up staying there for 2 weeks, and when I went back to the apartment, I already knew something in that place had changed me for good. The second I walked in, I started packing. I grabbed everything I could, threw it into 2 suitcases, and rushed to the elevator. There was another woman inside. A woman, tall, athletic, wearing workout clothes and sunglasses, even indoors. She looked like she was in her early 20s. I barely paid attention to her at first. Then I looked again. Something about her felt familiar. The way she walked, the way she kept her shoulders tight, the shape of her face. I kept staring, trying to place it. And then it hit me. She looked exactly like the landlady, only decades younger. I stared at her longer than I should have, and she noticed. She turned away quickly and tried to step out as soon as the elevator reached the ground floor. But I didn't let her. I grabbed her arm and turned her toward me. I didn't need her to say anything. I already knew. It was the landlady. I started yelling at her, asking what she had done to me. She tried to pull away, but I wouldn't let go, and we ended up fighting right there in the lobby. Of course, she was now stronger than me, much stronger, and she shoved me hard enough that I fell and hit the back of my head on the floor. I don't remember losing consciousness. It just felt like everything cut out. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room, with bright lights and nurses moving around outside, and the landlady sitting next to my bed. She looked guilty, almost sad. She apologized for pushing me and said she didn't have a choice, but I didn't care about that. I just wanted answers. Through tears, she told me the same thing had happened to her, that she had moved into that apartment about a year ago, and that there had been another landlady before her. I processed that information for a minute, then asked how the hell that worked, and she said she didn't know exactly. What the last landlady told her was only that the 2 apartments, hers and the one she rented out, had been connected since the building was constructed, and that one drains time while the other gives it, like a straw. I know how insane that sounds, because my first instinct was to call it a lie. But she stood up, wiped her eyes, and put a key in my hand, telling me that both apartments were mine now and that she was moving out. I asked her what I was supposed to do with it. She gave me a small, tired smile and told me to rent it out. I thought about going to the police. I thought about trying to find the landlady. I thought about going back to my parents. But none of that would give me those months back, or the years. I am 22, but my body is decades older, and every time I look in the mirror, I can tell it won't just reverse on its own. In desperation, I listed my apartment on the same website where I found it and moved to hers. The messages started coming in almost immediately. The first showing is today. That's why I'm writing this, out of guilt. One part of me keeps saying I don't have to do this, that there has to be another way. But the other part screams that I don't have a choice, that it's either this or accepting that I've lost all my youth. The girl coming to see the place sounded young and hopeful on the phone. She's excited to find a spot where she can have the best time of her life in this city. I remember sounding just like that. So guys, I think it's time to wrap up the video now. Please tell me in the comments which story was your favorite. Personally, I really liked the investigation one. Let me know which type of stories you want and I'll make videos on it. And also tell me about how long my videos should be. I really need an answer to that. Anyways, goodbye. Thank you for watching and have a great day or night. Peace.